Welcome back to another episode of Celebrating Success, Embracing Failure, and Inspiring the Entrepreneur Inside of You. I'm your host, Rebel Saklocha, and today I am joined in studio by former startup founder and Invest Nebraska program director, Matt Foley. Matt, thanks for being here.
Rebel, thanks for having me. Always fun to be back at the Engler space.
So there's a lot to dive in today, from your startup experience to your current role, but the binding tie here is an interest and investment in entrepreneurship. Where did that initial spark for this space come from?
Yeah, so definitely didn't see it coming growing up. I think for me, come from a relatively large family, and entrepreneurship wasn't necessarily something, hindsight, I think we were brought up in, but now kind of connecting the dots, I can see a little bit of that. We were always competitive as siblings, and that's a big part of entrepreneurship. But for me, kind of the first jump into entrepreneurship was actually in college. So a good friend of mine, Andrew Menark, and his little brother, Mitch, along with Brennan Costell, who you know, we're all kind of the founding team, the early days of Farmafield. Mitch was the CEO and an executive founder. And for me, it was kind of the holy crap moment of, this is way more fun than the traditional finance or corporate background at the time I was thinking about of, all right, what would it look like to work in a large organization and be on a finance team? And being a part of a startup, it was so much fun. And also it was pretty humbling of, all right, I figured out how much I actually don't know. But building a company from the ground up, bringing on team members, going out and figuring out how to raise capital, as I say, building the plane as you're flying it. Pretty humbling a lot of days because I got our teeth kicked in many days, but it was an amazing experience for me, and that's kind of how I got a taste of it, and now there's no going back. Yeah.
Awesome. So you dove head first into Farmafield at a pretty young age, which is something at Engler we encourage a lot of our community members to do. Was there ever a point that you felt like you were in over your head, or, take us through some of those like key growing moments?
I mean, definitely a lot of days I felt over my head, but this is definitely a testament to the team. That'd be kind of my first piece of advice, is surrounding yourself with a co-founding team and early employees that you really want to work with and fight big battles with. And it's really a testament to the CEO, Mitch. Mitch has really built a really special culture at Farmafield from the ground up. So at the time, he was obviously out of school, but myself, Brian, and Andrew, we were in school, and we always had a good balance of, yes, we're trying to build a business, but also there are other aspects of life and of faith and of family and other things that we're trying to not lose sight of. And Mitch is honestly the best of the best when it comes to understanding those priorities. So it's always a struggle of, you're trying to figure out, all right, where is this company going, and ultimately, most importantly, how do you solve a customer's problem? But I think in the early days of the company, we did a pretty good job of that.
Awesome. So for those who are unfamiliar, give us the 10,000-foot view of what Farmafield is, what they do, right. All of that kind of thing. So
Farmafield is an investment platform. So what it does is it helps outside individuals connect with the ag industry financially. And the company's evolved today. It's actually found a good niche in solar and solar financing. So it's been a number of years now. It was founded in 2014, 2015. But it's really a testament to both Mitch and Andrew and Brennan, now many other team members that have joined, of just how the company has evolved, but also the new problems and areas in agriculture that Farmafield is solving.
Awesome. So you were involved with them for quite a while, and then transitioned to Invest Nebraska. Talk through, making the decision to transition and kind of what you're up to now in your current role. Yeah.
So, participated in the new venture challenge, working on Farmafield, and through that time I got to meet a couple of the Invest Nebraska team members, and it was kind of just right place, right time, where I thought about, one, I was thinking, what would it look like to be on the other side of the table, so to speak, of evaluating startup opportunities, potentially investing in them. And Invest Nebraska, to give a little background on my current employer and our organization. So we're a venture development fund. So if you think about venture capital, investing in early stage startup companies, this is actually a model that a lot of states have started to make more popular, basically recognizing, all right, we don't have a Boston or a San Francisco in our backyard. What can we do to help our homegrown entrepreneurs? So we'll invest in startup companies, and ultimately our goal is education, but also the financial resources. So what I mean by that is, most of my days we're sitting down for coffee and we're just kind of brainstorming, all right, what are the pros and cons? Should you actually raise money? Where do you want this business to go? And then ultimately Invest Nebraska will invest in about 1 to 2 companies each month.
Awesome. I read that Invest Nebraska invests anywhere from $2 to $3 million each year in Nebraska companies. What kind of impact is that going to have? I mean, broadly right away, but then, what kind of benefits can Nebraskans expect down the road from these investments?
Yeah, so I think what's most important for us is the economic growth. So we're trying to make good financial investments, companies that are going to make us money. But as a venture fund that's trying to make an economic impact, all that money is returned. So we'll receive a couple $1 million from the state each year, but we'll also invest multi-million dollars each year from return capital from old investments that have done well. So if you go to think about measuring impact, now we've created 700, 800, I think almost 900 jobs that our portfolio founders have created. And what's exciting for me is thinking about the jobs that are going to attract people back to Nebraska, are going to motivate young Nebraskans to stay around and work on these types of technology ventures. They're pretty cool positions. I mean, these are people working in digital marketing and sales, engineering, machine learning, crazy things way over my head, but it's fun to watch these companies be built from the ground up, and we play a small part in that in the early days.
Absolutely. So Invest Nebraska is a big umbrella with a lot of different programming underneath it. Shed light on some of the different programs that exist under Invest Nebraska, and maybe some that may especially be pertinent to our listeners.
Yeah. So you're right. It's busy, and it's busy on purpose. And the reason for that is Dan, our CEO, he has a very clear vision of, yes, we want to be the capital provider. We need to help these companies get financially set, but also there's a lot of other operational support that we can help with. So one program I won't talk a lot about is it's called the Biotech Connector, and it's wet lab space where if you want to start a company in life science or pharmaceuticals or biotech, the last thing that we want to do as an investor is put money into your company and then you go spend it all on fancy equipment that we could just get you access to. So if you think about kind of makerspace style where someone can come in, have a very flexible lease, and have access to professional, nice equipment for biotechnology, that's an important resource we've helped build out in partnership with the university and a couple other great partners. I think of interest to this conversation we can chat about, and this is what takes up a lot of my time today, is a program called the Combine Incubator. So the Combine we started about 3 years ago, and the genesis of this was Dan, our CEO, is leading conversations with groups like the Farm Bureau, the Cattlemen, Department of Ag, and basically we were assessing, we're a top tier state when it comes to production agriculture, but when it comes to ag tech entrepreneurship, we were kind of punching below our weight. And we were seeing other peer states honestly do much better when it comes to new business creation and also new job creation, kind of those metrics I talked about earlier. So the Combine, we're an incubator program. So our goal is how can we work with the idea stage entrepreneur and get to the point where they're ready for Invest Nebraska, where they're ready for raising money, hiring folks, taking that business from an idea to commercialization, and actually taking it out into the field and working with farmers, working with producers. So it's a fun journey. We've built out an incredible team. So we work with Tanner Nelson and Hannah Klitz, both two Engler alum, and they're the dream team. Working with them is awesome. Yeah.
Awesome. So shed some light on some of the success stories that have come out of the incubator program.
Yeah. So what's fun about working at the Combine is we work with an incredibly vast array of both types of businesses, so the areas of agriculture they're trying to solve problems in, but also the types of people. So we'll work with students a lot of the time. So Jack Keating, he started a company called Corral Technologies. So Corral, what he's trying to do is virtual fencing for cattle. So how can we make intensive grazing and rotational grazing more efficient? Another grad student we recently invested in and worked with through the Combine, his name is Jackson Stansel, and that company is called Sentinel Fertigation. So as nitrogen is being applied to the field, what is the best way, both financially but also for the environment, to measure and to ultimately deploy nitrogen across a cornfield? So those are two examples of early stage entrepreneurs where this is really their first job, honestly, where they created their own company. But also it's fun, we get to work with entrepreneurs that they're a little more mature. Like they've had a couple of jobs in industry. They're later on in their career. So a company we worked with recently is called Blue Stem Biosciences. So Billy and Tyler, they previously working at Green Plains Renewable Energy, and they were looking at some of the trends in synthetic biology. And basically what that means is, all right, how can we as an industry understand what is the future of large scale chemical production, and in the Midwest, ethanol, what does that look like in the future? And how can future chemicals be produced sustainably? And now they're in the process of building out software that is looking for new molecules that can create, say, the production of fabric or the production of other materials that impact day-to-day consumer life. So Billy and Tyler, it's fun to be in a room with those guys because they're kind of been there, done that guys. They're incredibly impressive entrepreneurs. Another company we're working with is called Nave Analytics. Incredibly impressive founder, Jesse. She's worked in the ag industry for many years, works with producers and really understands, all right, if we want to build what we're trying to do at Nave, and their vision is called a data coherence hub. So making agronomists and ag professionals more clear to make decision recommendations, we really need to start at the producer level. And she's pretty grounded in that because she's out in central Nebraska. She's in the Kearney area and she works with producers every day. So those are a couple of examples of companies we work with day to day.
Absolutely. Yeah. So these days you're working with founders and helping them get connected to the resources they need. How does having startup experience help you as you're meeting with these folks, and how has it kind of changed your perspective on entrepreneurship? Yeah,
I think hopefully the word that we try to keep in mind with our entire team is empathy. So Tanner himself is a farmer. He's out in Bertrand, Nebraska, and when he's trying to pair up entrepreneurs with the producer, he can have that empathy because he's found technology solutions that he's loved, and he's found tech software that he absolutely hates. And he can think about, all right, if I'm trying to pair up entrepreneurs with producers and see what clicks, which is his day-to-day job for us, he has that empathy because he's the boots on the ground. And Hannah started her own business, Oak Barn Beef, and she's helping our entrepreneurs work on their marketing and messaging needs. She's been there, done that. So that's what we really try to do. And I think for myself, I can take myself back to those early days of working and tinkering on Farmafield. All right, what was it like where the road ahead was pretty cloudy and we didn't know where things were going, and we didn't know what the customer need was, and we didn't know what the future of the business looked like. So I think those aspects of being in the shoes of the entrepreneur is important. Yeah.
Absolutely. So as you're sitting across the table with these folks, what are some attributes that kind of set apart the individuals or businesses that end up being really successful to the ones that maybe, struggle a little bit more?
Yeah. I mean, some things, to be honest, are out of their control. I mean, I think it's been interesting for me. So I've been at Invest Nebraska for 5 years, and there definitely is a notion of being at the right place at the right time and timing, and some of the trends in the industry. And I think we're going to see that in some trends in agriculture, whether it's traceability or sustainability. Business models we're seeing today, they probably wouldn't have worked 5-7 years ago. So what can an entrepreneur do about that? Well, a lot of it is you're looking for those waves, and the best entrepreneurs, in my opinion, they're riding that tidal wave and they're kind of surfing right in front out of a trend. So that's just on a high level, but I think for me, watching the best entrepreneurs operate and scale their businesses, it's got to be that driving passion. And the Engler program talks about that all day, is if you don't have the passion, you're going to be burned out on this business pretty quickly, because this is in most cases, a 7-10 year commitment of their life. And it's got to be something that the industry cares about, and something that you love and you enjoy doing, but also something that people are willing to pay for. And it's that middle one that a lot of times people get wrong, where someone's willing to pay for it and the industry probably needs it. But another analogy I've heard, it's missionary versus mercenary. Are you just going out to make money, or do you actually want to see this happen? Because sometimes you're solving your own problem. So that's kind of a lot, but I see it go wrong sometimes, but also it's fun to see it go right.
Yeah, absolutely. So you kind of touched on this a little bit. The Engler program and Invest Nebraska, specifically the Combine, have a lot of the same core values. Yeah. Speak to your experience with the Engler program and kind of what value you see specifically for young entrepreneurs here in the state of Nebraska. Yeah, so
I was fortunate at my time at the university. I got to take a couple of Tom's classes, so kind of see inside the program and see what it's like to be involved. And I think on a high level, we could probably take each ag tech company that we've invested in and trace some roots back to the Engler program. Maybe it was their first customer, their first advisor, the founders themselves. It really is kind of the dream pipeline, I don't know if that's the right word, but the dream pipeline to help a program like ours, because there's a lot of good resources out there for, all right, how do you raise venture capital, or how do you build modern looking, feeling software? But the grit, the drive, the personal attributes of a good founder, that's a lot tougher to teach, in my opinion. So the stuff going on here is pretty special. Yeah.
Absolutely. Okay, so say you are a farmer in western Nebraska with a great idea that you think deserves some attention. What is the best way to get connected with your programming and, push that idea forward?
Yeah, so the short answer is nebraskacombine.com. There's a contact us form, and that's kind of the fun part about my job is you never really know what's going to pop into your inbox, and you work with a lot of random things that people are interested in. Mm-hmm. But we try to keep our barrier to entry, so to speak, as low as possible. Like, we want to meet with anybody, and even if it's not a fit for our program, even if it's not a fit for investment, it's fun to take those coffee meetings. And that's when I look back at my time at Invest Nebraska, that's going to be my favorite memory, is getting on the road and going out to Gearing, Nebraska and sitting down with someone that has this crazy idea, because that's the fun stuff of seeing what people are up to.
Absolutely. Yeah. So looking ahead, what are some goals the program has, and what are some ways that you see Invest Nebraska evolving in the next few years?
Yeah. So aspirationally, it's pretty clear. We want to make Nebraska the best place to start and build an ag technology company. And what that means is, to think about it another way, if someone's starting an ag tech company anywhere in the country, we want them to look silly if they don't have some sort of base people contribution to the state of Nebraska. And it might sound far-fetched, and maybe it is today, but long-term, that's what we want to get to. Mm-hmm. And to chip away at that and gradually to get there, what we need to do is we need to both market and message what's going on in Nebraska, but also prove to our entrepreneurs that if you come here or if you stay here, you're going to get every door open up for you. Mm-hmm. And you're going to find the financial backing, the customer backing to build your business here. And also the right people that can join that team. So it takes time, but also what's special for me is we're starting to see the early days of that flywheel where entrepreneurs talk, and you know this, Rebel, like, yeah. People are interested of, all right, if I'm starting a company, what are the best resources out there? And a lot of times they don't go to the service provider, so to speak. They go to the other fellow entrepreneurs and they ask, all right, you were in the early days of starting your company a couple of years ago. Who helped you? And word of mouth is incredibly important in this industry.
Absolutely. So you've spoken a lot about the great people you have on board at Invest Nebraska and at the Combine. Speak to the importance of putting people in the right roles to better serve, your people.
Yeah. So we like I said, we've got the dream team. So it starts at the top. So Dan Hoffman, our CEO, he's always been very clear that this is a people industry, and we've got to find the right people that are interested in both kind of having a servant attitude of working with entrepreneurs, but also, as I said, empathy. So Ben Williamson, he's our investment lead and attorney on our team. He's a business owner himself. He understands what it's like to raise capital, but also to be in the entrepreneurial shoes of a small business owner. Nicole McDonald, every good team needs a Nicole. She's the one that kind of ties it all together behind the scenes. So I think for us is servant leadership. How can we make sure we're working with the entrepreneurs and not coming across as uppity. And Ben in our office jokes about this a lot because he likes wearing jeans and a t-shirt most days to his meetings. But I think it does say something of, we're not going to be the group that sits down and has a three-piece suit and tries to come across as well. We're going to tell you how to run your business. We can maybe share some best practices, but at the end of the day, we're here to help. Almost every email I send is an introduction most days. We're just trying to connect people and trying to help entrepreneurs do the blocking and tackling every day. Yeah.
Very cool. So I'm going to backtrack a little bit. Now that we've kind of gotten introduced to everyone on the team, what does the initial coffee conversation look like if we're meeting for the first time?
Yeah. So I think one thing that's nice about Nebraska is we've got a lot of tools in our tool belt. So what I mean by that is, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, but education. So making sure people know what are the resources out there. So we're very fortunate in the state of Nebraska. We have a program that's called the Business Innovation Act. So there's a series of grants. That's actually where the funding for Invest Nebraska comes from. And it's been around for a number of years, but we're still, there's still a lot of people that, all right, they've worked in an industry their whole life. This is the first time they're thinking about starting a business. What are the resources out there? So we've kind of got our spiel where we'll run through each of those programs. And then once we do that, we want to learn more about their industry and where they're at and who can we connect them with. Because honestly, if we can understand, all right, we have some predictions on upcoming challenges that they're going to go through. Who are a couple people that we can connect them with? And we're an industry agnostic fund. Invest Nebraska will invest in biotech, life science, pharma, drones, sensors, ag tech, like we talked about. So we're the farthest thing from an industry expert, but there are people in all pockets of the state that have built really good domain expertise in their own kind of subculture, subcommittee of domain experts. And if we can plug someone on the outside into that circle, it can be really helpful. And that's fun to see, because then you come back and it's 2 months later and they're like, hey, I talked to this person, this person, this person. I had no idea this program was out here. And it's a fun kind of circle to get rolling. Yeah.
Definitely. Well, Matt, I think it's pretty clear from our conversation today that Nebraska is on track to be the premier ag tech hub.
That's the goal. That's the goal. Yeah.
What else would you like to share about the program, or what's something we missed that you'd like people to know?
Yeah, I mean, I think aspirationally that is the goal. I think another thing that's important to us, and this is why it was important to bring Tanner on the team, is how can we give producers a seat at the table? And what I mean by that is, in the past, technology has been pretty top down, where a founding team builds it and they build out a sales force and they go sell it and then push it out to the masses. And I think what's exciting about agriculture is has, in some sense, the ability to come a little more upstream, where producers are going to have, in my hope, a more seat at the table where they can select and say, all right, these are the types of, whether it's a software or hardware solution that we want to see in the industry, and we're going to back it, maybe financially, but we're going to be the early customer. Or this is the type of solution that we're going to take a risk on. And it comes back to the farm. And ultimately, this is what I want to see happen in Nebraska.
Definitely. So as we round out our conversation today, what is a piece of advice that you would like to offer to either the early stage entrepreneur or just people in general? Yeah,
I don't know if it's a piece of advice, but I would say like a quote that people smarter than me have often said and remind me of at difficult times is, and I think it's Thomas Edison, but and Dan, our CEO, has said this a couple of times. Opportunity is often missed because it's dressed in overalls and looks like hard work. And I think a lot of times people kind of want to play startup, and maybe that sounds bad, but they want to do the fun stuff, and they want to do, the surface level things, but doing the work and spending the hours and spending the time and committing, in most cases, many years on a single project and not losing focus, that's something special. And I think that's something that a lot of people, honestly, including myself, we need continual reminders of, all right, how do you do the work and keep your head down and focus on a singular goal for a long period of time without getting distracted? And it's incredibly tough, but it's a good reminder that people have continued to tell me. Yeah.
Great food for thought for everyone, but especially the folks here in the entrepreneurship space. Well, Matt, this has been awesome. Thank you so much for stopping by and sharing your expertise with us.
Thanks for having me, Rebel.
Thanks for tuning in to the Engler Journey Podcast. Be sure to subscribe and leave a review so we can keep building people, building businesses, and building this community.